Welcome to Power Talks. I'm Beth Ann, and we have Melody Cedarstrom. She has evaded jury duty once again, and we're going to empower you, we hope, with some truth that we have in our hands. Good
morning, everyone. My fingers are crossed that I'm not called once again. I have 2 weeks to go for the month of August, but it's amazing. So, not a lot of crime down here in southern Maryland. But there is, we have a very low population in the county, so they have to make sure we're available 5 times. They can call you for duty in a month. So I never heard that before, so it'll be the last time that I actually volunteer for jury duty or perhaps
it's your civic duty. I should have sent you the handbook for jurors. I have the handbook for jurors. It's got the Constitution in there, and it tells everything about being on a jury and blah, blah, blah. It's really a good little booklet. It's a little pocket book.
But it's amazing. I have some flexibility in my job and so forth, and I think of all the people that show up. I mean, they are dedicated, and they do give, I don't know how they do it, to be available for 5 days with their work, their families. If they're called, you don't know how long how long you'll be there. It could be 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, or more. So, I found it difficult.
Radio is not flexible. And the medical clinic that I worked for years ago, they were not flexible. In fact, when they hired, they said, if you get called for jury duty, you need to let us know right away. We have a letter to send because we cannot do without anybody. And so automatically, I think I did get called, and I had to get a letter from them and get excused. And then when I worked for Derry, when he was still living, he didn't like it, but he couldn't really. It wasn't that I was on the air with him every day. At that point in time, I was once in a while, but so I was actually going to be called in for jury duty, and at that time my father-in-law had passed away, so I was excused from jury duty at that time. But it wasn't for a full month. It was only for X amount of weeks that they had segmented out, and then right after I started this show, and there is nobody to fall back on. Then, not this show, not Power Talks, my show, CSC Talk Radio, then I had to get excused. I got called, and you can't be gone with live radio. You gotta be on the air, so.
And I have had backup, and I'm right now drafting a letter to them to see if there's any way they can excuse me for the following 2 weeks. But we'll see, and, but it has
when you run your own business, it's tough.
It's very difficult. It is very difficult, especially having to be available for the full month. That's what's difficult.
A long time.
It's a long time.
Because you're on hold. Everything's
you're on hold. You can't do anything. Right. Although U.S. retail sales did do something in July. It rose 0.6%, following an upwardly revision. Advanced to 0.3% in June, marking the largest advance in 7 months. Economists, they were only expecting about 0.4% in the headline number. In July, consumers bought more cars and spent more on discretionary items, which is all interesting because every report I read, vehicles are tanking. People are not buying vehicles, but in this retail report for July, they are. They're spending more. People are spending more on discretionary items, which is your summer vacations. You have July 4th in there, so I would expect that number to be a little bit higher for the month of July. But everything that I read as far as sales, consumer purchasing, numbers, they're weak. They're weak. So we'll see if this is a 1 month wonder, which I think it will be. So they talk about job gains. They continue to help Americans with their spending. It improves their mood. And, of course, when you have record stock market prices, that also helps people's view of the economy, and they might go out there and spend a little more than they normally would. What they should be doing is saving a little more than what they normally do, because we all know that many Americans, they can't afford a $400 or $1,000 emergency. So, and that's...
Do you think August will be affected by school shopping, though? Will it be up because of school shopping?
You could see some impact on that, but we might even see that in July because a lot of schools start next week. So
yeah, well, some of them have started
already.
Some of them start this Friday here in the state of Missouri. They start, they always started us on a Monday. We didn't get to ease into it. We started on a Monday. Well, when I was a kid, we started after Labor Day.
After Labor Day.
It was always after Labor Day, so it might not have been a Monday every time. It might have been Tuesday, but we always started after Labor Day. But
also,
I don't know.
Also the inflation data was released, and that was a little disappointing for the governments. Consumer price index rose 0.1% in July, if you believe that, based on their numbers. And, of course, we all know that they wanted 2%, and we all know it's greater than 2%. So if anybody shops, I always said I want to shop where the people in Washington shop if they tell us we have no inflation. I want to shop where they shop.
Oh, wow. You mean you don't? You don't drive into D.C.?
Absolutely. Oh, my. Oh.
I need to go to D.C. I have never been to D.C. I don't get out a lot. I'm right here in the middle of the state of Missouri, which is in the middle of the nation, and I don't get out a lot.
Well, when you come to visit me, we'll go to Washington.
Okay.
Because I have yet to be there also.
Can we cause trouble?
We might.
I bet you and I could get into a lot of trouble.
As long as we don't stand around any statues.
Oh my gosh, they did. They toppled another statue. And, this is just out of ignorance. It says here, and this is coming from the Daily Caller, that a group of protesters toppled a monument, and I have this picture in my mind of what happened in Iraq, but this is not Iraq. And you remember when they were screaming about how horrible it was when ISIS went in and they were destroying all the historical monuments in these places? Well, what are they doing here? It says a group of protesters toppled a monument to the Confederate soldiers in Durham, North Carolina, and this happened Monday evening in response to the white supremacist rally that turned violent over the weekend. During the protest, a woman climbed up the statue located at the entrance of the Durham County Courthouse and affixed a rope just after 7 p.m. around the statue, and the group quickly pulled the statue from its pedestal and began spitting on it and kicking it when it fell to the ground. And, the ignorance of what our history truly is. Civil War was not pretty. It was not pretty. And it was brother against brother, father against son. It split the families. Many people died on both sides, and they're sitting here screaming and carrying on. And they're dividing a nation that has been many years trying to heal from that war. And we have come so far. And here we are. And I know that people are instigating this. This didn't just boil up from years and years. These people somebody is instigating and encouraging this kind of behavior. These aren't soldiers that are taking back a nation. This is totally different. And the hate, I think, is out of ignorance of our history. And of course the public school system doesn't teach the history, and they teach one thing and one thing only, and
what gives these people the right to destroy property? Number one, they should be arrested for destroying property.
That is not a peaceful protest.
And these people, they are ignorant. They need to know the history, but when you have people that are ignorant and they don't know the history, they don't want to know the history, they're very easily manipulated.
Oh,
and
yes.
Most likely they already have a sense of no right and no wrong. So, and yet this is never discussed. This is never talked about. And what are they going to do to Gettysburg? I'm waiting for something to happen in Gettysburg, which was one of the bloodiest situations of the war. people don't even know what the real reason of the war started, and it's really amazing. And the hatred that is being and on both sides.
Oh, yes.
The people who sit there and call other people racist, they have just as much hate for the people that they call racist as the racists themselves.
The word racist and the word hate seems to be the popular words these days. You know, they used to talk about, oh, I love this, I love that, how we overuse the word love. Well, I think it's the same way now with racist and hate. Everything is about hate. Everything is about racism. And you know what? It's not. They do have a level of hate in them, that's for sure. But that statue wasn't put up because of hate.
No.
And Memorial Day happened because the women in the South wanted to unite. We need to get this behind us. So they decorated the graves of all the soldiers, all of them. The ones who wore the gray and the ones who wore the blue. The families were so split, and they were trying to reunite a nation, reunite the families, and these people don't know this history, and they don't understand that it didn't really start out to be about slavery.
Nope.
That was something that was brought up, and I feel like that's what's happening with this racism now. Yes. It's not really about that. They're bringing it up to make it about that, but that's not what it's really about. And I was going to save that for later in the show, what I think it's really about.
Well, it is about division. It is by design.
Absolutely, Melody.
It is, and it just amazes me how few people see this.
They have to separate us. They cannot allow the American people...
Conquer and divide. Divide and conquer.
Yeah, there you go. They can't allow the American people to bond together.
No.
Whether it's because of lifestyle, whether it's because of the skin color, whether it's because of where we live, whether, you know, those on the East Coast, those on the West Coast, and us in the middle of the flyover states, you know. They have to label us, you know, the Christian, the evangelicals, the white, the women, the gays, the blacks, the Hispanics, and the poor Asians. They get left out all the time. You know, they have to label us.
They had their due during World War II.
You know, they have to label us. And then we see those labels and we think we fall under a certain category, and we don't. We should not, as American people. Whatever happened to bragging about the melting pot? We don't brag about being the melting pot anymore. We want everybody's cultures to come together separately, and you can't do that. You know, I believe in keeping traditions and culture, but you've got to melt it together. You know, some of our best recipes come from that, you know, melting our cultures together. It's by design. There's no doubt in my mind. And I was hollering at them at the TV again. You know, they just never listen to me when I yell at them. But I was telling them last night, you know, when they're screaming one thing, that you got it wrong. You've got it wrong. You're not looking at the bigger picture. I hear music.
I do.
I hear music. We're going into a break. We're going to open up the phone lines. Your calls are welcome. We have a couple of things we're going to talk about. A little bit about, I'm going to call it the sanctity of life. We have several different articles that we're going to share with you when we come back from this break. The number to call if you want to join us is 717-300-1218. That's 717-300-1218. And Melody and Beth Ann, Power Talks in the Morning. We'll be right back.
You're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com worldwide. Freedom is never free. We need your support today at FirstAmendmentRadio.com.
The book of Revelation says, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today. so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy Reality News app. Get it now.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.
You're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com worldwide. Freedom is never free. We need your support today at FirstAmendmentRadio.com.
And we have returned. You're listening to Power Talks with Melody and Beth Ann in the morning. I always say that different. Sometimes I say your name first. Sometimes I say my name first. Anyway.
You're allowed.
We believe in truth. And we believe that truth is powerful and power is in the talk. And so we try to bring you the truth. This is a little quote. This other talk show host tweeted this out last night or early this morning, and it is Bill O'Reilly. The hard truth is that hatred is on the march in America and extremism is the reason. Well, extremism is a distraction, I believe, from what the un-American globalists truly want. They hate the American people who claim the truth about our founding. This country was set up to be a constitutional republic. Now, you don't hear very many of these other talk show hosts or the politicians talk about a republic. They talk about democracy. So we have grown through the D.C. occupiers to believe that we're a democracy, which is chaos, and I think we can see that it's chaos these days. And the Democrats stand proudly on socialism, communism. They won't say the word communism, they just call it social. When will the Democrats denounce their traitoring ways? When will they admit that abortion is for profit and control? When will they denounce Margaret Sanger, who was a known white supremacist, and admit that her precious Planned Parenthood is for profit and control? What extremism is to Bill? Is it racial mess that we have been that I believe has been fueled by others as a distraction, using the weak and the uneducated because our schools don't educate the truth. And you know why? Because there's power in the truth, Melody. There's power in the truth, and they don't want power to be back in the hands of we the people. Now, I also got in a tweet last night that said liberals are very strict about what to call them, but happy to wipe them off the face of the earth. And what are they talking about here? Iceland, this was an article about Iceland, has nearly eliminated Down syndrome, but not through a medical breakthrough, because they abort them. They actually kill them. Iceland has nearly eliminated Down syndrome through the abortion. And it says here, and Satan rejoices. In Iceland, they have almost completely eliminated it, talking about Down syndrome. But not by finding a cure, like I said, but by enacting any kind of preventive measures. No, that's not it. No, Iceland has eliminated Down syndrome by killing nearly everyone who had it. Abortion, it says, Iceland is aborting anyone who may be born with Down syndrome, and Hitler is smiling at them. And that, we see so much of this going on. And it says, this is eugenics. The story makes Margaret Sanger, founder of Planned Parenthood, cackle with glee from her torturous cave in hell. This guy doesn't like Margaret Sanger that wrote this. This female. It's Courtney Kirchhoff that wrote this. We have some Kirchhoffs around this area. That's a German name. It goes on in this article. It's pretty lengthy. And it talks about they're interviewing a guy from over there. He says, well, we don't look at abortion as murder. They don't look at it as murder. We look at it as a thing that we ended. a thing that we ended. We ended a possible life that may have had a huge complication, preventing suffering from the child and for the family. And I think that is more right than seeing it as a murder. So that's so black and white. Life isn't black and white. He says life is gray. And this woman says, wow, that just sickens me. This again is where the left is the same as the alternate right. I don't know where we get off calling them right. But anyway, both the left and the alternate right support eugenics in some form, while ironically boasting a master race of sorts. The left sees their master race as a Marxist, supporting mixed race society, where all races think the same, free of genetic defects. In this case, having an extra chromosome, the alternate right sees the master race as simply whiter. And it goes on in this, and it talks about some of these things, but it also says, so spare me the 1 to 4% ratio abortion cases which only prove the rule, because most abortions are elective. They're not life-saving measures. And I think I read one time, Melody, that the abortions that are done to save a life, which would be the mother's life, obviously, is like 0.01%. In this day and time, it is very unusual that a mother loses her life in a pregnancy. Very unusual. And, but this was just an astounding, article about how they perceive abortion and the Down syndrome babies in Iceland. And, I think we all know someone, or a family that has a Down syndrome child. And they're usually the most loving children, or human beings. They're just so loving and so innocent. And, they nowadays here in the States, and, women who are pregnant, and they're a little older, they are at a higher risk, for having a Down syndrome child. And, they want to send them to special doctors for geriatric pregnancy. And I actually have, and she probably wouldn't like me telling this, I actually have two daughter-in-laws that are expecting right now that fall into that category. And the one is just very upset about going to this second doctor. And I said, well, you can turn them down. The other daughter-in-law did. She said, I'm not going to do that, because it doesn't make any difference to me anyway. We're not going to abort our child if he's or she is Down syndrome. So,
the tests for Down syndrome are so very wrong. The only thing I can say about Iceland, at least they're admitting
they admit what
they
they're
are doing.
Yeah.
But here in the States, it's the same thing. They just don't acknowledge it. I mean, women are tested for Down syndrome, and they're given the option if they want to abort or continue. A very good friend of mine, her daughter, they told her she was going to have a Down syndrome baby. Does she want to abort? They encouraged her to abort, and she said no. The baby was not Down syndrome. So, it's the U.S. here in the States, they just cover it up, and they encourage to have these, if the test shows a possibility or that the baby is, they encourage aborting the baby. And yet these tests can be so wrong. And
oh my goodness, they are wrong. And I had a daughter-in-law that went through that with her first pregnancy. They were running all these tests, and they were telling her that she was that this test was this way, but this one's not, and da da da. And they scare these mothers to death, especially if it's their first pregnancy. And you're at a higher risk if you're older in the first pregnancy than you are if it's a pregnancy, not the first pregnancy. But the older you are, the higher risk you are of having issues, whether it's Down syndrome or other kind of physical issues with your pregnancy. But you're absolutely right. At least they're honest, and they are not honest. They are not telling the truth here in the United States about abortion. And they won't admit that the child's a life. And for all of these that were screaming about things this weekend, about the white supremacists, they're the very ones that believe in choice, pro-choice and Planned Parenthood, which was established exactly for white supremacy.
You know, I can't even say of families, of parents who do have a handicapped child, and they welcome and they take care of it throughout their life. And in the world we live in today, with the number of abortions and such a disposable society that we live in anymore, these people who take care of, my computer person, he has a son that is handicapped, and he has massive seizures. I mean, sometimes he can have, 5 seizures in a week, and they can be severe. And when the boy turned 18, the state tried to take him from them. And they said, no, we are taking care of our child. Leave us. They had to go to court to fight to keep their child, because the state was saying, well, the boy's now 18, and, you can't take care of him, and, if he can't go out, live in his own apartment, and so, I mean, it was just, this is where we are today.
That's another breaking down of the family.
It is.
And, it's, there's 2 women in town. They have deceased now, and they were widows, but they both had a Down syndrome child, and they kept that child, and they raised that child. And the one woman, she was very active in the churches around this area, and her little church that she went to in the country didn't have evening service, so she would come to the church where I was then a music director, and she came to that church in the evenings, and she wrote poetry. She was just awesome little lady. She just really was. What he did, she got to where she was quite a bit elderly, and couldn't do some of the things for him, and she had to put him in the nursing home here. And of course she was there constantly with him. And he had, of course they normally don't have a very long lifespan, and I think he was in his 50s at that time, and he passed away. And it wasn't too long after that she also passed away. But she and the other woman both took care of their boys. They had Down syndrome up until the time that they really physically could not anymore, because they were like in their 70s or 80s. And it was, you have to admire them, and the love, the love for it's just amazing. And that we just are such a throwaway society that we just don't have any love for life. Respect for life. I have long said, Melody, that those who don't respect liberty, and I'm looking at the left that are so selfish, and the globalists that are so selfish, and we don't have any love for liberty, and if you don't love and respect liberty or life, they go hand in hand. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, property, and prosperity. If we don't respect and love life, we're certainly not going to stand up for liberty.
No. And so it's, there's no response. I mean, we could go on and list all the problems that we have in this country, and
tons of them.
But it is all by design.
I do believe so.
And we are here, and you can point your finger at this group, that group. Overall, it is a battle. Good and evil. I mean, that is the ultimate battle that is going on. You can call it politics, you can call it the left, you can call it the right, you can call it the breakdown, the globalists, you can talk, Ultimately, though, it is good versus evil, God versus Satan. And that is what controls the world. And that's not even the right way to say that, but so we're experiencing the breakdown. I mean, when they took God out of our schools and out of our daily lives, look how things have changed. There's no accountability anymore. Who do people account to? No one. To themselves.
They don't want to account to anybody. They don't want to be responsible for their actions. I was never a hippie. Mom and Dad didn't allow that, but I lived in the hippie era where, if it feels good, do it. And that was when the sexual revolution took place, and we're seeing the the trickle down of what happened with that sexual revolution, and it's not pretty. That's where abortion comes from. That's where some of these other issues, the diseases, sexual diseases from promiscuity, they went way up. You know, you see AIDS came, you know, all the things that we don't want to be responsible for our actions, and abortion is one of those right up there. And the feminists, they don't want to, they don't want to be responsible. They disrespect men. Some men don't deserve respect, obviously, but they disrespect all men. And the rant that Judd went on this weekend was so stupid, so selfish, so minor. And of course, the next day we see this rioting where a young woman's life is taken, and others, their lives are changed probably drastically for the rest of their lives, with the injuries that they sustained, and if not the physical injuries, the trauma of what took place, and there was no good that came out of that. I don't see any good unless people would actually wake up and see, and I don't know that they do. I think they still see the black and the white, and they don't understand that it goes much, much deeper.
Well, you talked about hippies. Did you know today in history, Woodstock?
Oh, my goodness.
It started from August 15th to the 17th was the scheduled date, but I think it actually ended on August 18th. So when you talk about hippies and you talk about love, free love.
I wasn't at Woodstock.
Woodstock was August 15th, 1969.
There's a little town in Illinois, and I can't remember the name of it. And they are going to be one of us that are in the line for 100%. California, Missouri is in this central Missouri area with Jefferson City and Columbia. And we're in the 100% for the eclipse. It will get completely dark here. There will be no sun. And there's a little town in Illinois that is also going to be that. And they brought in these rock stars. I'm trying to think of the one. I can't think of their names because I didn't watch them.
We talked about that.
Well, they're calling it Moonstock.
Moonstock.
So I was writing down those dates to see if that even fell on Moonstock. So it's close. It's very close on the dates.
It is close. It is close. They came short, but unless they can postpone the eclipse for. In fact, I actually saw something on the news today that I guess it was the Weather Channel, where they don't believe eclipse will happen. There will be no such thing as an eclipse. I don't know how that's going to work, but
who said that?
Some scientific.
Well, I know there's going to be an awful lot of disappointed
There's going to be one
people.
on the 21st. We know, no, on the 21st after the 21st. There will be this one, but for future eclipse.
Oh, I thought the next one was like in 2024 or something.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I know that there's going to be a lot of disappointed people if it happens to be a cloudy day. There'll still be an eclipse. It'll still get dark, but you're not going to get to see it. So there are going to be a lot. There's supposed to be well over 100,000 people in the area of Jeff City, and in the area of Columbia, well over 100,000 people. I don't know what's going to fall here in California, Missouri, and this area in Illinois, they're talking like 300,000 people are going to come in there. And it really scares me. The article that we talked about with the NAACP and what they're telling people that come through Missouri or come to Missouri. It alarms me I wouldn't be surprised if somebody didn't start something just because.
With everything that is happening, yes.
Yes.
And it will be exaggerated, and who knows. And of course, you have Ferguson. Not too far away.
Yeah, not too far.
Not too far away. So what's next?
Well, you said an article. It was also, I said we were going to have to talk about sanctity of life, and this is coming out of some things that are happening in China where they're harvesting organs and they're using prisoners.
Yes, you had mentioned to me that there was a discussion about how organs were being removed from people that were still alive and so forth. And so I just did a little investigation, and I came up with this at a report that China's engaged in a widespread and systemic harvesting from prisoners, of organs from prisoners. And they have a ton of them. there was a report that was done by a Canadian lawmaker, David Kilgore. He's a human rights lawyer, David Mattis, and a journalist, Ethan Gutman. And they publicly reported figures from hospitals across China to show what they claim is a massive discrepancy between official figures for the number of transplants that are carried out through the country. And, of course, they're blaming the government, they're blaming the health system, the doctors and hospitals for being complicit in this travesty. The China say about the total number of legal transplants is about 10,000 per year.
Wow.
But they feel that they easily surpass the official Chinese figure just by looking at 2 or 3 of the biggest hospitals in China. The report actually estimates about 60 to 100,000 organs are transplanted each year in Chinese hospitals. And according to the report, the gap is made up of executed prisoners, many of them prisoners of conscience that are locked up for their religious or political beliefs. Wow. That's what always amazes me. Here everybody, all of our business is being done in China. We've exported our inflation to China. People just seem to forgot. And supposedly, China says, we're not going to, do these things anymore. And it's like, why would anybody believe a communist nation? I mean,
have they ever told the truth?
Get it?
Well, why do we have so many people here wanting to follow socialism? It's never worked, and it's just a kind word for communism. Why do they think that they want that? It never has worked.
I mean, it slowly strips away your liberties, your freedoms,
your dignity.
Yes. Well, people want something for nothing. They weren't taught that there isn't anything in life that is free. Mm. And these kids, these college kids, I mean, look how they supported Bernie Sanders. But if you wanted to talk to them or say, hey, go define socialism, did they do it? No. Did they listen to you? No. They just, then they'd automatically would bring up Trump. Like that was the comparison for, when you're talking about socialism and free college. I mean, it was just like, you can't, we talked about this, I believe, yesterday, but in China, this continues to be a huge problem. I guess it's not a problem for those who are getting the organs, but according to the report, thousands of people are being executed in China in secret, and their organs are harvested for transplant operations. And so who is being killed? You have religious, ethnic minorities, Tibetans, you have underground Christians. Again, life.
There is no respect for life. There's just none whatsoever. And socialism, I was trying to find my articles. I was making noise. I apologize. Socialism is, and democracy and the republic. I have been trying to pull down articles on these and trying to study it so that I've got it straight in my little brain, because I believe that's what's really going on here. They're creating this chaos. They're creating this divide of the people because that's what they have to have in order to break the republic completely. They hate Donald Trump. Donald Trump, you and I know he's not going to do everything right. We don't like everything about him.
Nobody does anything right 100% of the time.
Well, apparently he can't even say anything right, It doesn't matter. He can't tweet it right. He can't say it right. But democracy and a republic, it says the key difference between a democracy and a republic lies in the limits placed on the government by the law, which has implications for minority rights. Both forms of government tend to use a representational system. Citizens vote to elect politicians to represent their interests and form of the government. In a republic, a constitution or character of rights protects certain inalienable rights that cannot be taken away by the government, even if it has been elected by a majority of voters. In a pure democracy, the majority is not restrained in this way and can impose its will on the minority. That is what happened here with the election, last November. That's why they hate and want to do away with the electoral vote. Because the minorities were protected here in the United States during that election. The big cities are the ones who went Democratic, social. They went socialistic with Hillary. But the others did not. So more states voted for Donald Trump than popular vote. So we can't have the big cities calling the shots for rural Missouri. And that's what's the difference between, there's more differences in that than the Republic. And I think we're fighting to save this Republic, and yet we don't have, very few people in the United States understand what the Republic is, that they had the power all along. Like Dorothy and her ruby slippers. We're going into a break. I hear the music. I kind of got off. But that's something that is of great concern to me. I believe that's what our battle really is. We're going into a break. Your calls are welcome at 717-300-1218. That's 717-300-1218. You're listening to Melody and Beth Ann with Power Talks in the morning, and we will be right back.
Visit crosstheborder.org, C-R-O-S-S, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn. The Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the Scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a reestablished Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, C-R-O-S-S, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.
Hear it first on FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net.
And we have returned. You're listening to Power Talks with Beth Ann and Melody in the morning. We believe the truth is in the talk, and Power Talks, power and truth. I got that all backwards there, Melody, but you know what I'm saying.
Repeat that, would you please?
No, I can't. I did a bad enough job the first time. I'm not going to try and spit that one out again. Now, I cut you short earlier. You had some more financial news that you wanted to give to us.
Yeah, a couple of notes came out today. We had some pressure in gold and silver today, mainly because of, North Korea is stepping down. They delayed a decision on firing missiles towards Guam. He's waiting to see what the United States does next. The North State media said on today, as South Korea's president said Seoul would seek to prevent war by all means. So this was his first, the North Korean leader, Kim Jong-un, this was his first public appearance in about 2 weeks. And it does kind of make sense. Why would you publicly announce that you're going to do this and not expect some sort of response as a fire and fury, as we heard from Mr. Trump. But he did go on to say, Kim Jong-un anyway, he went on to say that if the Yankees, I had a crack.
I like being called the Yankees.
He said that if the Yankees persist in their extremely dangerous, reckless action on the Korean Peninsula and in its vicinity, testing the self-restraint of the DPRK. The latter will make an important decision as it already declared. Of course, the DPRK is the North Korea's, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. The Southern Korean President Moon Jae-in said today that there would be no military action without Seoul's consent, and his government would prevent war by all means. He went on to say the government putting everything on the line will block war. So it's kind of interesting that, they certainly don't want it, but they also know, as you mentioned, they've got the U.S. behind them. So we'll see.
I'm not sure what control he has over North Korea, but I know that we've been fearful that that's who North Korea would attack first, and then of course he spouted off about Guam. And, like you said, he disappeared for a couple of weeks. He kind of backed off. I don't know if it was he's afraid somebody was going to come take him out or if he, if that's why he disappeared, or maybe the tough talk of Trump kind of made him stop and think, or maybe China said, buddy, you probably need to tone it down just a bit. But the UN coming out with all the countries that, agreed with the sanctions, that had to smart just a little bit too.
I think so. So we'll see what the problem isn't going to go away.
Oh, no.
He will continue with his weapons, and but something will have to be done. There will have to be some sort of discussions, and but in the meantime, everyone is on alert. If you think you're driving an American vehicle, it kind of cracks me up because people say, well, I'm only buying American vehicles. There isn't any vehicle that's made that I know of that is made 100% in America. Either some part, someplace, somewhere in that vehicle, mainly most parts, is going to be made someplace else. They might be put together here. They might be, but a lot of the parts come from someplace else. Buick. Their latest vehicle is made in China. And they bring it over here and sell in the States, and it's one of their top-selling vehicles. How many people buying that vehicle just because it's Buick think that it's really made in the United States when it's fully 100% made in China? Jeep. Now, Jeep has been all over, but that was an American classic. It's now being produced by FCA, which is an all-Italian Fiat and former Chrysler Corporation, but that too may soon be Chinese property. And they are looking for a buyer on the outside, and they might have found a potential buyer in China. And Chinese automakers are under pressure from the government to acquire foreign brands, and FCA may be the likely candidate. Representatives of an unnamed Chinese car manufacturer made an offer earlier this month, but it was rejected for now because it was too low. FCA, the CEO, Sergio Marchionne, has been publishing FCA to make it attractive to serious tire kickers by streamlining operations, and it goes on. Volvo? Guess where Volvo is made? This is Volvo.
Oh, my goodness.
China.
I thought Volvo was German.
China.
China. It's German China.
China,
German.
China. But the government is pushing for companies, car manufacturers, to buy up foreign property. There's been a lot of money. Bloomberg reported last week that Chinese companies plan to spend $1.5 trillion acquiring overseas companies over the next decade. So, again, it's globalism. We're all connected.
We are connected. We are indeed.
Another one that was out, Cox Automotive is laying off 950 employees, roughly 3% of its full-time workforce, in an ongoing effort to cut costs. Cox Automotive is going to lay another 225 employees off, and about half of those are eligible for early retirement. So again, they're cutting back, and the job cuts come as at a time when they are looking to revolutionize the digital retailing experience by bringing a transactional atmosphere to dealership websites that allows consumers to handle more of the buying process on the web. So again, loss of jobs, computers, technology, robots,
that's one way one way to fight the minimum wage, Forrest. $15 an hour. Employers can't afford it, and we can't afford to buy the product, whatever they're selling, by the time they've tried to eat that $15 an hour wage and cut back on the hours for their workers, and it's not going to be a good thing across the board. And it's already proven it. California went with it, and they're losing jobs. So
the $50 an hour wage is a political statement.
Oh, absolutely.
Somebody who wants to get elected, because anything that they're wanting to have $15 an hour, those people will be replaced by a computer, by a robot, by a computer, by technology. So this is a temporary mantra by politicians to get reelected, and that's all that is, because it doesn't work. And all the positions I saw today, I think was it in Arkansas, someplace in the South, where you have kiosks and McDonald's, where you just go in and you look at the pretty pictures, and and it just irritates me. They just show pictures and no wording, At least if I'm going to do something on a kiosk, I want to read it, not pictures. I don't want pictures. I want the words.
Yeah, Derry used to get upset about that when they put that on the little buttons in the car and vehicle. You got what's that for? What's that? I don't even recognize that picture.
Yeah, and the thing of it is, I know YouTube. I mean, everybody looks at YouTubes. But some are fun, you learn and so forth. In fact, I looked at YouTubes when I had to drive across a very large bridge going down to Key West. I don't like bridges.
I don't like bridges.
And I looked at a lot of YouTube videos of people driving. It's like, I don't know why. I mean, people really do have to get a life, but they take pictures as they're driving this bridge.
Good grief.
I know, but I watched them, and I eliminated a lot of my fear because I could experience it and so forth. So, yeah, but if I want something educational, I don't want to listen. I want to read.
And it sticks with you better.
And it's frustrating. I don't want to listen to people talk.
Well, I've been trying to clean the office because when I do the shows, I don't like reading it off of the computer, so I print it out like the old time. Print it out and mark it up with a red pen, and so I get paper piles all over the place. But it's because I think it's much easier to have it in hand and read it.
And I just want to say, I said I don't like to listen to people talk. Well, we do a radio talk show. And radio is different than pulling up a YouTube for learning about something. Anyway,
I hear our music.
Thank goodness. Get me out of that. Get myself out of that trouble.
She was trying to put us down there for our talk. You've been listening to Power Talks with Melody Cedarstrom and Beth Ann in the morning. We believe in truth. And that's what we try to bring to you. And we will bring more truth tomorrow morning. Thank you, Melody.
Thank you.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn, the Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a re-established Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the seven kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, C-R-O-S-S, crosstheborder.org to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.
The book of Revelation says, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today, so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy Reality News app. Get it now.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.